Entrepreneurs on born that brew. You are now listening to the Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's grow!
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Podcast. I am your host, Adam McChesney, and I want to thank you for being here today. We are live from Half Coast Studios here in St. Louis, Missouri. Thank you to Half Coast for this amazing setup and sponsoring the show. If you are looking to start your podcast or take your current one to the next level, then you definitely need to come check these guys out. Contact them today for a free consultation. If you're listening, please be sure to subscribe to the show and leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. We would love for you to share this on social media by tagging me, and this way we can get this incredible content out to more people. I'm excited for today's episode. This guest and I met earlier this year in the Champion Circle, otherwise known as TCC, with Mike Claudio. And I was fortunate enough to be on his podcast a few weeks back. We met in person for the first time a couple weeks ago in Florida. One of the nicest guys you will ever meet, and has some amazing things on the horizon with his company. He's growing. There's a lot of cool things, which I'm really excited to dive into. My guest today is Kasey Luft. Kasey is the owner and founder of Clientric and CRM Consulting, and they specialize in helping grow your business to new heights by increasing revenue through automating sales, service, and marketing. Kasey, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate you for having me.
And did I say the name right?
Clientric. It was close.
Man, I was playing it in my head as you said it. Clientric. Okay.
Yeah, all good. Now I'm excited to be here and share my story, and hopefully we can teach some valuable lessons to any other entrepreneurs that are out there.
That's the name of the game, man. No, I'm really excited for the show. So for those of you either listening for the first time, or if you are an avid listener, you've been listening to our episodes, you kind of know the layout. But just a quick recap, we like to take the entrepreneurial journey of our guests and compare that to the to the beer brewing process, and we create what we have as our entrepreneur process. So we go through a couple different things, which we'll talk about here today. But to get started, Kasey, we would love to just know kind of where you're at today in your business, what you have going on, and then we'll kind of work backwards from there.
Definitely, yeah. So I'm currently running a business that has 10 employees. It's a multinational organization. So we actually have an office in India too. That is, I'm sure we'll dive into that, but that's been an interesting transition to build that out as well. And right now we have some pretty major clients, mainly in the legal space, that are basically redoing their entire operations and case management solutions with our services. So that's kind of where we're at. We only have a handful of clients. We kind of specialize in more of the boutique customizability of those businesses. So yeah, that's where we're at.
That's phenomenal. And yeah, I didn't know about the multinational business until obviously a couple weeks ago when we were there. Talk to us about like what that process has been like, because I know, obviously that's very unique to what you guys are doing. Would love to hear kind of how that's gone.
Totally. No, it's tough because it requires a lot of trust. You can't just open up a business in any country. That's not how that works. You need to have a business partner over there or in whatever country you're looking to open a business. And it requires a lot of trust to be sure that, people you don't know very well aren't going to screw you over, to be perfectly honest with you. You kind of have to be careful, pick and choose. I was lucky enough to find some people on my team who are very, very devoted, who knew a couple different people who also are kind of entrepreneurs. They're leaders in their own space. And so I was able to connect with someone over in India, and they were able to help me walk through. They connect with the accountants, the lawyers. They're kind of doing all that legwork. They're managing the business from that point of view. They're making sure that the legal aspects, the contract law is being followed, the employment law, all that kind of stuff. So thankfully it's kind of hands off for me now, but like just putting that trust in someone else has been probably one of the toughest things I could possibly do.
I can literally imagine. I mean, it's tough doing it when it's right in front of you, much less, thousands and thousands of miles away and obviously physically not being there. So it's really cool though to hear that, obviously it is hands off, but one of the biggest factors is trust. And obviously that goes into, the culture of your business and things like that, which I'm sure we'll get into here in a second. So phenomenal background on kind of where you're at right now. We'll start to dive into kind of the history and the outline of the show, but the history for you as an entrepreneur. So we like to compare that to that of a beer, where every beer is obviously has a reason behind why it is getting brewed. So talk to us about, where you've come from. I know you're in Canada, but kind of walk us up to this point and kind of your background and things like that.
Totally. Yeah, that's a long story, so hopefully it's not going to take too long. I ended up deciding that I wanted to get a degree, and my degree is actually in physics, which is nothing to do with what I'm doing now, oddly enough. But it was one of those things where I wanted to follow my passion, something like that I thought was really interesting. I enjoyed the science aspect of it. But as I'm going through university, I'm realizing that, this really isn't that much fun. And I didn't really think I could get that many job prospects out of it. With a degree in physics, you're very, very limited in what you can actually do. Without going to master's or PhD. And let's say I wasn't the best student, and I've learned a lot since then. And I feel like I'd be a way better student now if I could go back in time. Time management wasn't there, all that kind of stuff, test anxiety, everything like that really got the best of me throughout those university years. And so I came out of university with not much of a degree that I could do anything with. Honestly, it was a piece of paper, as everyone else says. Was it worth it? I would say I've made lifelong connections since then. Some of my best friends are still, I met in university. So I can't say it was a complete waste, but it wasn't the best use of money. Let's put it that way. So after that, I just kind of tried to find my passion. I tried to find something I was interested in doing, and I found that to be actually very difficult. And so I ended up getting a few jobs here and there, and from there, I ended up actually getting a job with a startup company who really kind of opened my eyes to the world of business. I was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. Working at a startup is very different. If you haven't, or if you're in corporate America or wherever you are at, startup life is very, very different. It's a lot of fun. You meet a lot of people. There's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of high intensity, just the amount of time that you spend doing all these different things is very crazy compared to where you'd be in an office job. And so that was a lot of fun. That kind of opened my eyes to that. And during this time, I didn't really have a ton of skill set. So I wanted to expand on that. I was working as an operations in the business itself, but basically using spreadsheets, analyzing data, trying to figure out how we could, make the business more efficient. And I really enjoyed that, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. And so I started teaching myself programming, ended up actually becoming a data engineer, and kind of just switched to my own freelancing. So that was kind of my first foray into entrepreneurship, where if you've heard of Upwork or Fiverr, that kind of stuff, I've been on those platforms. And it was really interesting because I realized I had a knack for communication with people, and being a very level-headed person, I can handle people of all types, people who are, nervous, anxious, excited, anything like that. It was very easy for me to communicate with people. And so I found that to be very easy. And so I continued to explore my freelancing careers, as a side gig to current jobs, and just kind of accelerating my, knowledge and what I was learning. And that was really successple. Back in, 2017 now, I think, and this is not something I actually talk about often, but I don't even think, let alone many people in the TCC, but I was actually diagnosed with testicular cancer, and ended up having to have one removed. So that put a lot of things into perspective for me. Thankfully, up in Canada here, we have a very good healthcare system. And so within basically 48 hours of finding out and actually confirming the diagnosis, I had it removed. And so this is actually a pretty quick thing. They gave me a 40% chance of not having a relapse, essentially. And I haven't had, it's not come back. So the cancer is gone. I'm almost on 5 years now. And so I'm pretty thankful for that, to say the least. But the outlook wasn't super great. 40% when you think about it is not that high. So I got very lucky. And that really put a lot of onus on myself to follow my passion, to do what's right. And I think it made me thankful, hopeful, and, kind of put things in perspective that I don't really want to waste my time. And so that was kind of the first jump that I was like, okay, maybe I should push myself further on this whole entrepreneurial thing. I've worked for businesses. I've had bosses that I didn't really enjoy working with. And I was tired of always wanting more. I'm a type of person that's the grass is always greener kind of thing. So I'm always okay, I get into this thing, I get bored doing this thing, I move on to the next thing. And so I think that the culmination of that was really starting my own business. And so I full on went into freelance mode, started my own business, and just hadn't ever looked back. And so this is while I was doing the data engineering side of things. And not long after that, I realized that I could do this a lot more effectively with tools that already existed. And so one friend told me about Zoho CRM, which is typically what we use in our business. And it seemed a lot like Salesforce. If you're familiar with Salesforce or HubSpot, it's essentially that, just at a much more reasonable level for small to medium-sized businesses. And so I kind of fell in love with it. And it allowed me to do everything I had wanted to do with my data engineering and freelance ability. But it allowed me to like transform a business. It gave me that why that I was kind of missing, but it also gave me that ability to expand my knowledge. And so I really took that to heart and really enjoy actually helping businesses succeed and changing their processes. I hate inefficient processes. So when, a company comes to me that says, it takes us a half an hour to do this one task that could be automated or could be moved around to do it in like 30 seconds, like I'm all for that. And to see the look on a business's face when they realize the potential and how this is actually going to transform their business is so cool to me. It gets me so excited. I get like tingles all down my back when someone's like, no, I hate this thing. And I start explaining how it could be better. And they're just like, oh my God. And they just like see it as like a light bulb moment. I think that is so cool. And so I really enjoy helping businesses make their business more efficient and ideally increasing their revenue. And so that's how I got to where I am today. So yeah, so hopefully that is a relatively good overview. I could dive into a lot more if we wanted to, but I know you have some questions. So
yeah, no, that's a great overview, man. And I really appreciate you sharing all that experience. Yeah, obviously I had no idea about the cancer. Very glad, obviously, that it, obviously has not come back and you're 5 years strong now. But man, it does put a lot of things in perspective, right? And so, that is the type of stuff that I really appreciate our guests, sharing with the audience, because that obviously had a massive pivot to get you to where you're at today. And sometimes it is a life-altering event that will make you, go in a different direction or have a different mindset. So really appreciate 100%. That, man. Really appreciate that. So obviously, one of the things that we like to talk about within the entrepreneur process, so we kind of talked about the ingredients within a beer. Great beer is made from great ingredients. So give us some things, 3 things specifically that have made you successful in your journey thus far.
Yeah, I think the first thing that's made me successful in my journey so far, maybe I'm not as successful as I hope to be one day. So there's a lot of things there that imposter syndrome can really take hold. But I'd say the first thing would be the ability to have worked for so many different businesses, to understand how not to be a leader. I've worked for many, many people, and it has really shown me like how to be a good leader by knowing how not to be, how to be not a good leader. There's a lot of people that don't do check-ins with their team. There's a lot of people that just let it fly. Bosses who, demand things from you. They don't care about you. They don't try to motivate you in any sort of way. They don't try to develop you in any sort of way. Had I gotten more support throughout some of these other businesses, I may not be on the journey I'm currently at. Obviously, at each point I felt stuck. I felt like there was more. And so I think that was honestly the first part. The second part is building up the confidence to jump all in, to go all in onto this business and what I've really decided. I think that has really pushed me out of my comfort zone. Being able to identify, those different areas that you can improve upon has really, really helped. And I would say the last thing would be honestly a business coach. Having Mike Claudio from Win Rate Consulting be my business coach has really transformed the way I think about business, the way I think about my personal life, how intertwined these two things really are. That has really helped me develop a better mindset around how to run a business, and has really accelerated my, learning and knowledge and where I'm currently at. So I'd say those 3 things are probably one of the most impactful.
I love it. Those are three really valuable things that I think can transform your business, but also, as you mentioned, your personal life as well. So hiring a business coach, getting confidence, and the cool aspect I think that most people don't actually take into consideration is most of us don't just go into entrepreneurship. We work for someone else or whatever that ends up being.
Pushed into it,
or you got a company that you bought out or whatever. It's a family friend or whatever it ends up being. There's so many different things that could get you to that point. But we very rarely can easily identify things that were going wrong or that we had problems and issues with as employees, and then be able to translate that into how you are a leader, into how you are a boss, into how you are managing people. And I'm even guilty of doing that as well. Now that you say it, like, it really brings to light, like, hey man, there's some things that maybe you should do differently because you didn't like that either. But I really like how like you built that framework of it. So that's awesome. Talk to me a little bit about, because I know this is kind of a little bit off topic, but it kind of goes into leading. Talk to me about the culture, because obviously you're remote and you have businesses in different countries, things like that. Talk to me about the culture online, because a lot of our listeners do have remote workers and things like that. And I think it's always a good topic to touch on.
No, I think that's a very true point, especially with how everyone is transitioning to remote work, or maybe transitioning back to office, or maybe a hybrid version. The biggest thing that is required when it comes to remote working is trust. You need to be able to trust that your employees are actually working. You can't be micromanaging people and be like, hey, are you on at 9:05? Just because you can't see them doesn't mean that they're not working. My team work insane hours. Like, when it comes to my people in India, they're working, like they're up right now. They're working until 2 p.m. Pacific time, which is 2:30 a.m. their time. Like they work really, really hard. And it's just different for them from that point of view. And so I know they're working when I'm sleeping. I know that they're doing the job that I expect them to do. And I think this actually also sort of comes down to the core values and how you instill the core values into your team, is that if they're not working, it's going to show. It's very clear that they're not doing the job. And so if they're not meeting those core values, those expectations that you really originally set out with them, it's very easy to be, hey, you weren't doing the thing that you said you were going to be doing. And then you can start, employing a PIP program or some sort of other program if they need help. And so really that's the style of management and leadership, is being able to trust people, giving them the agency to run their own tasks, to do their own thing, is so important when it comes to remote work. And just having that trust in your team that they're going to do what you need them to do, and they're going to do what they say they're going to do.
No, that's a great answer. And I really like how you talk about not micromanaging, and then again, going back to trust and the core values and instilling those. And then also the obvious fact is, if they're not doing the work, you're going to find out one way or the other pretty quickly.
Exactly. You can't really hide work that doesn't get done.
Exactly. No, I love it. So the next aspect that we'll talk about is the brewing process. So great beer doesn't happen overnight. Obviously you've had, a lot of things that have happened over the course of your entrepreneurial journey, the ups and the downs. Talk to us about all the good things and all the bad things that you've experienced from a high level thus far.
Totally. Yeah. There's been a lot of ups. There's been a lot of downs. What I was, I think, most surprised about is how high the highs are and how low the lows are. I've gone through some personal things in my journey, in my personal life, that have greatly impacted my business life. And so that has really, I think, has also surprised me. And so I think from that point of view, some of the highs are, first, when you start out your business, you're like, it's just this excitement. It's like the honeymoon stage. If you are with a new partner or whatever it is, you're like, yeah, this is great. This is so much fun. I love it. And then you hit that wall at some point, and you're like, man, is this what I want to do? Am I good at this? Like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I here? And so you hit that first kind of wall, I want to say, the first challenge where you're like, is this really what I want to be doing? Like, you forget how much excitement you had to be, and you forget how high that high was. and now you're way down here at that low. And it really hits you, I think, when you start to expand and grow. And I think people have talked about this, is you kind of hit those moments as you're going through like another growth phase, whether it's depending on how small or how low, you're hitting some sort of challenge. And you're really like reflecting on, personally, whether this is something or not that you can continue to succeed with. And so I think those highs and those lows at the very beginning are almost the most impactful, because it really sets the tone. And so if you're more negative, if you're more down on yourself, if you let the imposter syndrome get you, you're less likely to enjoy the process going forward. And so I've had some things in my personal life that have actually kept me a little bit down lately, and I'm very well aware of that now. But over the past, few months, I've actually been a little bit depressed, and I didn't realize it. And so it's recognizing those moments. You may not feel it right away, but if you look back on how you've been feeling, you start to understand that it's not as bleak as it seems, per se, if you're in a low moment. Those high moments when you're closing a sale for the first time, it's really, really cool. You complete a milestone, you have this vision, this goal in your head of where you want to go, and you see that completed for the first time. And you get so excited and so happy, you're like, yes, I could do this forever. And then the next day or even the next hour, maybe you lose a client, maybe something like that happens. You've had a poor conversation. We've all had those. And so those get you so down. So you just kind of have to mitigate that and reflect on where you've come from and to try to push through. So I think some of those highs are definitely those milestone moments where, starting the business, creating that vision, being able to see your vision come to reality has been absolutely huge for me. We're about to hit a new milestone this week, actually, where we've been in the process of building out this system for a law firm for 7 months, and we're actually about to launch it today. So that has been really, really cool, because I know how much it's going to impact that business. And so finally being able to see that transition is so amazing and gets me really excited. However, I also still feel very anxious. We've been working on this for so long. What happens if things go wrong? So it's like a double-edged sword some of these times too, where you're like so high and then like you pull yourself back down because you're unsure, or that anxiety or that fear is getting at you. So some of those milestones are good, but honestly, like there's like I said before, there's a double-edged sword from that point of view, where there's a lot of positives, but then your mind brings you back down to reality sometimes. Sometimes it brings you down too low and you're like unbalanced at that point. So yeah.
That's a great overview of your journey. And I like how, the summary of that is you didn't realize how high the highs would be and how low the lows would be. And I think totally. that is so true in entrepreneurship, because you think that it's not going to get as good as it ends up getting. And you always think it's not going to be as bad as it actually gets. But it's how you take that information, how you take those events, how you take those things that come, and you get to the next level. And so I think you did a great job of explaining kind of like your process on understanding, but more so, I know you used the word realizing, kind of being self-aware that, hey, this is going on and I need to figure out what I need to do to get out of it, or this is going really good. Let's figure out maybe how we can just have this be a new standard and see how we can be more efficient at doing it and moving forward. So totally. I really like that, man. I think that introspective nature in and of itself is so huge of a skill set as an entrepreneur, because you're not having anyone, if you don't have a business coach or, you don't have access to your business coach all the time, you have to almost be your own coach. You'd be like, was this the right thing to do? How could this sales call have gone better? How could that conversation with my team member gone better? Okay, someone's leaving. Why are they leaving? Is it me? Is it the business core values? How can we improve this? And so that introspective nature is something that I think every entrepreneur needs to have in order to be successful. Yeah, no, I love it, man. That's super true. So talking about the next thing that we'll get into is the fermentation and conditioning. So that's the part of the beer process where you're waiting to see the final result of the beer and what it tastes like, and figuring out what tweaks need to be made in order to obviously get it to be just a little bit better. So what is the biggest lesson that you've learned that you would share with someone that's an entrepreneur looking to save them years worth of mistakes?
Oof, that's a good one. Man, I think one of the absolute biggest things is that it's going to take time. Be patient. I am a very impatient person. And so I have a lot of expectations, and I'm still going through that phase right now. Like I may not have a lot of clients coming in right now, but that's not to say that that's necessarily a bad thing, because it's giving me time to focus on my current clients. It's giving me time to put a lot of focus on them and make sure that they're getting the attention they deserve. And so there's an aspect of any business where it's going to take time to grow your brand. It's going to take time to grow yourself. It's going to take time to grow the team. Try not to be impatient and tweak it too quickly, because that's where things start to go crazy. And that's where, honestly, I think your culture and your team start to recognize that you may not be the leader that they thought you were. If you're changing every week, you have this new brilliant idea and you're changing gears, that's not a great environment for your team. That's not a great environment for you. You have to be very careful when you make these tweaks. Try to use as much information as possible, but also don't get too much decision fatigue. That is also where a lot of people don't make decisions when maybe they should. So I'd say the biggest lesson is just making sure you understand that it's a process to run your own business. There's a finite amount of time in the day that you have available, and try not to overwhelm yourself with all the different anxieties and the imposter syndrome and things like that, which will come. So just being patient and understanding yourself, understanding your process, and believing in yourself.
Yeah, as entrepreneurs, we always want it to go a little bit faster. We always want to think about the next level and think about where we can go next. And so I deal with that, as most people do. I deal with being impatient, thinking that I need to be going faster when I really need to be kind of like setting back and really analyzing what we have. So no, that it makes complete sense. Absolutely.
And like an example I could share with you right now is like last month I hired a company to do some cold calling, some cold outreach, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm not seeing the results I wanted right away. I know it takes time to do these things. But it's just like, do I need to get in there? Do I need to start making cold calls? I'm like, what are you doing? Like, just chill out, focus on something else, and just like, don't like let that run its course. If it works, that's wonderful. Like I'm seeing progress, but I'm not seeing the progress I want. But also like, I just need to let them do their thing. They're the experts here. I don't need to overwhelm and make myself more anxious than I already am. So it's just being patient with that and understanding that you have to hold yourself back sometimes.
Absolutely. Trust in the process, man. Yeah. Trust in the process. So the last thing that we'll talk about here, the last point in the entrepreneur process, is distribution. So that's taking the beer to market and selling. So you got a lot of exciting things going on. I know when we had talked last time, you mentioned that you were going to be traveling to India, I believe, at some point. So what is next? What are some cool things that you have coming on the horizon here over the next couple months and years to come?
Totally. Yeah. Like by the end of the year, I definitely want to go to India, like a week or 2 weeks, visit with the team. I feel like I have quite a special relationship with a lot of the guys over there. They feel like almost brothers in a weird way. Like I feel like we've been through a lot together. And I know a lot of the guys look up to me. They're like, I want to be you one day. I'm like, I want you to be me one day too. Like, let's do it. So I think that is really cool. It will be a culmination of a lot of things coming together to be able to visit with the team over there. And in addition to that, we have expanded our, knowledge, our team, to the point of allowing us to build extensions and applications and things like that I didn't really know was possible. So we're actually going to be launching a couple different extensions in the Zoho marketplace, again, similar to the Salesforce marketplace. You can download extensions and things like that. And so we're going to be launching a few of those shortly, which is going to be huge, and it'll expand our brand and allow us to get other people to know our name a little bit more. We are working on an extension actually with a legal payment system called LawPay, like Stripe or something like that. So we've heavily integrated with them, and they were kind enough to allow us to do an integration for them. So that has been really cool. I think that's going to give us a ton of experience and awareness within the legal industry that we've been helping out with. And from other than that, I'm just looking at growing the team, growing the knowledge, and helping my team members become the leaders that I know they can be. I think that is absolutely essential to growth. And something that I love to do is see their dreams come true. So I work with my team, and we have meetings every couple of weeks where we sit down and we're like, okay, what do you want to do in your personal life now? Like, how can I help you achieve your goals? And so a lot of them, their goal is honestly, at least in India, is to come over to Canada or the US. They want to move to another location. And so having that dream makes it very easy for me to help them. Being able to build a business and being able to provide an income for them where they can do that, I think is absolutely essential as well. And so I think through all of that, it's looking very promising for the future of where we're going, what we're trying to achieve, creating that vision for the team. And so we have a few more champion circle meetings coming up, which I'm also looking forward to, because each of those you come out with light bulb moments and drastically changes how you view your business, how you view your personal life. And then on a personal level, honestly, I'm looking forward to getting back to where I was a few months ago, just getting out of this funk that I'm in. So being more positive about my position, myself, thinking about where I've come from, where I was this time last year, so different. I can't even explain the amount of growth, exponential growth that has happened over the past year. My business is only 1.5 years old. I have a long way to go, don't get me wrong, but just the exponential growth that I've been seeing in myself and my business has been so cool to see.
That's exciting, man. No, it's you're doing a lot. You're doing all the right things. You're having success. You're building a team. You're building a culture. And I have no doubt you guys are going to continue growing at that pace, man. So I'm super excited to watch your journey and continue watching your journey. So really appreciate you coming on today, man. Any last pieces of advice that you have for the audience?
Oh, last piece of advice. I think lean into it. Whatever you're feeling, lean into it. Try to understand, be introspective. Try to pull out as much insight as you can. There is no such thing as failure. You may feel like a failure, but it's just another learning experience, and just lean into that and don't let it happen again. I think that's the biggest thing, is we're all going to fail at some point. Just don't let it get at you. Keep moving forward and just learn from every failure that you do have and celebrate the wins. It's one of the most important things.
I love it. Celebrate the wins, learn from the losses. Lessons, not losses. That's my philosophy on all that. Well, Kasey, really appreciate you coming on today, man. If you can let the audience know where they can find, information, whether it's a website or a website plus socials, where can they connect with you online?
100%. Yeah, you can check out my website at clientric.co if you wanted to. Also on social at Clientric CRM Consulting, or you can connect with me on Instagram as well with my personal at k.luft. And yeah, I think those are the best ones to get a hold of me.
Awesome. We'll have that all in the show notes for the audience. Kasey, really appreciate you coming on to the show today, man.
Adam, I really appreciate it. This has been a blast. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, man. And looking forward to seeing you here in a couple of weeks, hopefully. I want to thank you again to the audience for tuning into the podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and share our content. Leaving a 5-star review goes a long way. And thank you again to Half Coast Studios. If you're in St. Louis and looking to start your own podcast, then you seriously need to come check out what they have going on here. We'll see you all next week. And remember, entrepreneurs aren't born, they are brewed.
I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. Thank you for listening to Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's